I flew to Florida and found my son dying alone in the ICU, while my daughter-in-law partied on a yacht, so I froze all her accounts. The call to end my final deployment came faster than I expected. One moment I was reviewing security reports at our base in Germany, the next I was stuffing my duffel bag with 25 years of military service behind me. In my jacket pocket, my grandmother's silver locket pressed against my chest, the one she'd given me before my first deployment, telling me to always find your way home, sugar. I had, time and again. But this return to Phoenix wasn't planned. The red-eye flight from Frankfurt was a blur of engine noise and restless thoughts. I stared through the tiny window at the desert landscape below, wondering if my son Tommy would be at his accounting firm or still asleep when I surprised him at his doorstep. I pictured his boyish grin, the way his eyes lit up when he laughed at his own terrible jokes. It was enough to carry me through the turbulence and my own nervous excitement. Arizona heat hit me like opening an oven door. The Uber driver loaded my bag without conversation. Scottsdale, I told him, giving Tommy's address in the upscale neighborhood he'd moved to after his promotion. As we wound through the desert subdivisions, past perfectly manicured lawns and identical palm trees, something gnawed at my chest. We hadn't talked much lately, my schedule overseas, his busy life with his new wife Amber. The car pulled into his street, and my stomach dropped. The front lawn was brown and dying. Newspapers were piled on the driveway, some still in plastic bags. The mailbox overflowed with envelopes and flyers scattered on the ground beneath it. All the blinds were drawn tight against the afternoon sun. The house looked abandoned, forgotten. I climbed out, the heat biting at my neck, and was about to knock when a familiar voice called from next door. Jane? Jane Morrison. Mrs. Rodriguez, Tommy's neighbor since he'd bought the place, stood with a garden hose in her weathered hands. Her usually bright face was pale, worried. Maria, I said, my voice steady but my fingers tightening around the locket. What's? You don't know. It wasn't a question. Tommy's been in intensive care at Mayo Clinic for 3 weeks. They took him by ambulance one night, middle of July. She hesitated, glancing away. And Amber, well, she's been posting pictures from some yacht party in San Diego. Been all over her Instagram, living it up while. The Arizona heat seemed to thicken around me as I stood there, her words settling like stones in my stomach. My son, my only child, fighting for his life alone while his wife of 2 years partied on the West Coast. I don't remember the drive to Mayo Clinic. One moment I was standing on Tommy's dead lawn, the next I was pushing through the hospital's automatic doors, my heart hammering against my ribs. The antiseptic smell hit me immediately, sharp and clinical, the kind that warns you nothing good waits ahead. At the information desk, I gave my name and his. The volunteer's eyes softened with recognition. 5th floor, ICU. Room 542. What would I find when those elevator doors opened? The elevator ride to the 5th floor felt endless. My grandmother's locket seemed to burn against my chest as floor numbers climbed. The hallway was eerily quiet except for the steady beeping of machines and the soft shuffle of nurses' shoes on linoleum. Room 542. I pushed open the door and nearly collapsed. My son, my strong, vibrant Tommy who used to wrestle me to the ground when he was 12, lay skeletal beneath a tangle of tubes and wires. His skin was gray, stretched thin over bones that seemed too sharp. Machines beeped and hissed around him like mechanical vultures. A doctor in a white coat turned from checking monitors. "I'm Dr. Amanda Stevens," she said gently. "You must be Tommy's mother. He's talked about you. What happened to him?" My voice cracked. "Advanced pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. If we'd caught it 6 months ago." She shook her head. "He's been here 3 weeks. The first week, his wife visited twice. Since then." She gestured helplessly. I moved closer, my hand finding Tommy's. His skin felt paper-thin, cold. His eyelids fluttered at my touch. "Mom." His voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." His hazel eyes, the same ones that used to beg for one more bedtime story, focused on me with tremendous effort. "I knew you'd come. I tried to call, but Amber said." He coughed, a harsh sound that seemed to tear through him. "She said not to bother you. Said you were too busy with your important military work." My heart shattered. "Tommy, I would have dropped everything. You know that. He squeezed my hand with surprising strength. She's been taking care of the finances. Said the treatments cost too much, that we should just. Another coughing fit seized him. Dr. Stevens stepped forward with concern. He needs rest. But there's something you should know, his insurance was cancelled 2 weeks ago. Non-payment. We've been treating him on compassionate care, but what about his savings? His job? Perhaps you should ask his wife. The monitor's steady beeping suddenly turned erratic. Tommy's grip on my hand tightened. Mom, I'm scared. It's okay, sweetheart. Mama's here now. I'm not going anywhere. But even as I said it, the beeping grew more frantic. Dr. Stevens checked the machines with growing alarm. We need to run some tests. The cancer may have spread to his lungs. As they wheeled Tommy away for emergency scans, I slumped into the hospital chair, my entire world crashing down. 3 weeks. My son had been dying alone for 3 weeks while Amber. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. It took seconds to find Amber's profile. Photo after photo of her on a yacht, designer bikinis, champagne glasses, a crowd of beautiful people against a backdrop of San Diego's harbor. The most recent post was from this morning, her lounging on deck chairs with the caption, "Living my best life." #blessed, #yacht life, #no regrets. My hands shook as I scrolled through the comments. Friends congratulating her on her well-deserved break and treating herself. While my son fought for his life in a hospital bed she had abandoned. I drove Tommy's Honda back to his house, the hospital smell still clinging to my clothes. His keys felt foreign in my hands as I stepped onto the front porch. Inside, the air was stale and heavy, the kind that settles when no one has cared for a place in weeks. The living room told the story immediately. Empty wine glasses sat on the coffee table, lipstick stains on the rims. Designer shoes were kicked carelessly by the couch. In the kitchen, takeout containers molded in the sink while expensive champagne bottles lined the counter. Dom Perignon, Cristal, brands that cost more than Tommy made in a week. On the granite island, a pile of unopened mail leaned precariously. I tore through the envelopes with growing dread, utility shut-off warnings, overdue mortgage notices, credit card statements with astronomical balances. Tommy had always been careful with money, methodical about paying bills. I moved to his home office, a small room he'd converted behind the kitchen. Papers were scattered across his desk, some crumpled, others folded with military precision. Among them, I found a thick stack of receipts that made my blood run cold. The first was for a yacht charter in San Diego, $75,000 for 2 weeks, dated exactly when Tommy was admitted to Mayo Clinic. A receipt from Tiffany & Company showed $50,000 for a diamond tennis bracelet, purchased the day after his first chemotherapy session. Dinner at Nobu Malibu, $3,000. The same night Dr. Stevens had called asking about Tommy's insurance. Shopping at Rodeo Drive boutiques, $25,000 in a single afternoon. All charged to Tommy's American Express, all while he lay dying and alone. I sat heavily in his desk chair, the receipts trembling in my hands. The dates lined up with surgical precision, every major expense coinciding with Tommy's worst days. The day he'd been intubated, she'd bought a $15,000 purse. The morning he'd asked for me, she'd charged $8,000 at a Beverly Hills spa. My phone buzzed. A text from Amber, "Heard you're in town. Tommy's fine, just needs rest. Don't stress him out with your military drama. Nail polish." I stared at the message, my vision tunneling. She knew I was here. Probably had alerts on his accounts, tracking every move while she partied with his money. I found Tommy's laptop in the desk drawer and opened it. His email was still logged in. What I found there nearly knocked me to the floor. An email thread between Amber and someone named Chad Yachtboy. How long do the doctors think? 6 months max. Thank God for that life insurance policy, winking face. You're so bad. But I love that about you. This yacht is amazing, BTW. Enjoy it, babe. Once this is over, we can be together for real. No more pretending to play housewife. The timestamp was from 2 weeks ago. I scrolled further. Photos she'd sent him, bikini shots on the yacht, champagne toasts, her wrapped around some muscled pretty boy with bleached teeth. All while Tommy fought for his life, believing his wife was handling things at home. I closed the laptop slowly, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. 25 years in the military had taught me patience, strategy, precision. Amber wanted to play games with my son's life? Fine. Let's play. I found Amber's number in Tommy's contacts and called immediately. The phone rang twice before her face filled the screen, all bleached teeth and fake eyelashes against the backdrop of the yacht's white deck. Music thumped behind her, mixed with drunken laughter. Well, she said, her voice slightly slurred. If it isn't Jane, the G.I. Jane herself. Finally decided to visit your dying son. The casual cruelty in her tone hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my voice level. Tommy's asking for you, Amber. She took a long sip from her champagne flute, smirking. I'm sure he is. Poor baby can't handle being alone for 5 minutes. Behind her, a shirtless man with sun-bleached hair wrapped his arms around her waist. Chad, I assumed. He needs his wife right now. What Tommy needs, she interrupted, is to stop being so dramatic. It's just cancer. Lots of people get cancer. Some live, some don't. She shrugged with stunning indifference. That's life. I felt my military composure crack. He's your husband. Exactly. Which means what's his is mine. Community property, Jane. Maybe they didn't teach you that in boot camp. She laughed at her own joke. Besides, Tommy knew I wasn't the type to sit around hospitals holding hands and crying. I'm young, I'm gorgeous, and I deserve to live my life. While spending his life insurance money before he's even dead? Her smile faltered for half a second. Then she recovered, taking another sip of champagne. I don't know what you're talking about. The yacht, Amber. The jewelry. The shopping sprees. All on his credit cards while he fights for his life. Like I said, community property. We're married, remember? What's his is mine, what's mine is mine. She giggled at the old joke. Tommy's got good insurance. He'll be fine. His insurance was cancelled 2 weeks ago. This time her smile disappeared completely. What? Non-payment. The hospital is treating him out of charity now. I leaned closer to the camera. So tell me, Amber, how does it feel to party on a yacht bought with the money that should have kept your husband alive? Her face went white beneath her spray tan. Behind her, Chad whispered something in her ear and disappeared from view. You're lying, she stammered. The automatic payments were cancelled when you maxed out his accounts. I held up the credit card statements. Every last one. The mortgage is 3 months behind. The utilities are being shut off tomorrow. You've bled him dry. She stood up so fast she nearly dropped the phone. People around her stopped dancing, sensing the shift in energy. You can't prove anything, she hissed. I have receipts, Amber. Every purchase. Every charge. Every email to your boyfriend about Tommy's life insurance. Her face went ashen. And in about 2 hours, every account, every credit card, every asset Tommy owns will be frozen solid. You can't do that. I smiled for the first time in days. Watch me. I ended the call and immediately dialed my lawyer. The war had begun. Rebecca Martinez had been my attorney for 15 years, handling everything from my divorce to my estate planning. When I called her that evening, she answered on the first ring despite the late hour. Jane? I heard you were back. How's retirement treating you? I need your help, Rebecca. Emergency custody of assets, power of attorney enforcement, and I need it done yesterday. By morning, we were in the Maricopa County Superior Court, armed with every receipt, every email, every piece of evidence I'd gathered. Rebecca had worked through the night, preparing an emergency petition for asset protection based on financial abuse and abandonment. The courtroom was sterile and cold despite the Phoenix heat outside. Amber sat across the aisle with her attorney, some slick downtown lawyer in a $3,000 suit who looked like he specialized in high-profile divorces. She'd flown back from San Diego, her yacht tan still glowing, wearing a conservative black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Judge Patricia Williams called the session to order. Rebecca stood first, her voice clear and professional as she laid out the timeline: Tommy's illness, his hospitalization, Amber's immediate disappearance to California, and the systematic draining of his accounts while he lay dying. Your Honor, Rebecca said, displaying the yacht receipt on the courtroom screen, while Mr. Morrison underwent emergency surgery, Mrs. Morrison was chartering a $75,000 yacht in San Diego. While he was placed on life support, she purchased $50,000 worth of jewelry. The pattern is clear and documented. She played the voicemails Tommy had left for Amber, weak, desperate pleas for her to come home, to help him understand the medical bills, to just talk to him. His voice broke in the final message, "Amber, please. I'm scared. I just need to hear your voice." The courtroom was silent except for the soft whir of the air conditioning. Then Rebecca displayed Amber's emails to Chad, including the one about the life insurance policy. A collective gasp went through the gallery. Amber's lawyer jumped up, his voice smooth but brittle. "Your Honor, Mrs. Morrison has every legal right to access marital assets. Community property laws are clear." Community property, Judge Williams interrupted, assumes both parties are acting in the marriage's best interest. This appears to be systematic financial abuse of a terminally ill spouse. Dr. Stevens testified via video call from Mayo Clinic, her professional demeanor unwavering as she described Tommy's condition and prognosis. With proper care and treatment, Mr. Morrison could have had 12 to 18 additional months. The stress of financial worry and abandonment has significantly impacted his will to fight. When Amber took the stand, she tried to paint herself as the grieving wife who needed space to process her husband's illness. Her performance was polished, practiced, tears at exactly the right moments, her voice breaking with calculated emotion. But Rebecca was ready. "Mrs. Morrison, can you explain this Instagram post from 3 days ago?" The image appeared on screen, Amber in a bikini, champagne in hand, with the caption "New Day, New Yacht. #living my best life #blessed. That was my way of coping. And this email to Mr. Patterson about your husband's life insurance being worth the wait." Amber's composure cracked. That was taken out of context." The judge's gavel came down like thunder. Given the overwhelming evidence of financial abuse, abandonment during critical illness, and documented intent to benefit from the defendant's death, Judge Williams announced, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, "This court orders all marital assets frozen immediately. Temporary guardianship and control of Mr. Morrison's estate is granted to his mother, Jane Morrison." The gavel's bang echoed through the courtroom like a gunshot. Amber shot to her feet, her carefully constructed facade finally shattering. "This is bullshit. You can't do this to me." 2 bailiffs moved toward her as she pointed a manicured finger at me. "He's my husband. That money is mine." "Mrs. Morrison," the judge said coldly, "you're in contempt. Another outburst and you'll be in jail." As they escorted a screaming Amber from the courtroom, her lawyer frantically scribbling notes for an appeal he'd never win, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: peace. Rebecca squeezed my shoulder. "Every account is locked, every credit card cancelled. She can't touch a penny." Back at Tommy's bedside that afternoon, I held his hand as Dr. Stevens explained our new options. With the financial stress removed, we could pursue aggressive treatment, experimental therapies at MD Anderson in Houston, clinical trials at Johns Hopkins. "Mom," Tommy whispered, his voice stronger than I'd heard it in weeks, "I'm sorry I didn't call you sooner." Amber said, "Sure. None of that matters now." I brushed his thinning hair back like I had when he was 5 and afraid of thunderstorms. "We're going to fight this thing together." For the first time since my arrival, Tommy smiled, really smiled. "Like when I was little and you'd fight off the monsters in my closet?" "Exactly like that. Except this time, Mama's got bigger weapons." The experimental treatment at MD Anderson was brutal but effective. Tommy responded better than anyone expected. 6 months later, he was in remission. Not cured, the doctors were careful about that word, but fighting, living, laughing again. During his recovery, I used the remainder of his savings to establish the Morrison Foundation, providing financial support for cancer patients abandoned by family. The first recipient was Maria Santos, a single mother of 3 whose husband had left the day after her diagnosis. Tommy moved back to Phoenix after his treatment, into a smaller house we bought together near Camelback Mountain. He returned to work part-time, his perspective forever changed by his brush with death. We cooked dinner together most nights, talking about everything we'd missed during my deployments, his college years, his first job, his dreams for the future. One evening, as we watched the sunset paint the desert mountains gold and purple, Tommy took my hand. You saved my life, Mom. Not just from the cancer, from her. I squeezed his fingers. You would have done the same for me. In a heartbeat. As for Amber, she'd moved back to her parents' house in Nebraska after the divorce was finalized. Last I heard, Chad had dumped her when her money ran out. She tried to sell her story to tabloids, but no one was interested in a woman who'd abandoned her dying husband for yacht parties. Some stories, I realized, have the ending they deserve. 2 years after that terrible flight home from Germany, I stood in the same Phoenix airport, but everything had changed. Tommy waited for me at the baggage claim, his color healthy, his smile bright. Beside him stood Elena, a nurse from MD Anderson who'd captured his heart during treatment. She was kind, genuine, everything Amber had pretended to be. How was the conference in Denver? Tommy asked, grabbing my carry-on. Productive. The Morrison Foundation is expanding to Colorado and Utah. I'd been invited to speak at a national symposium on patient advocacy, sharing our story with hospitals across the country. We've helped over 200 families now. Elena squeezed my arm. Your son talks about you constantly. The way you fought for him. As we drove through familiar Phoenix streets, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The foundation was thriving, providing not just financial support but legal advocacy for families navigating medical crises. We'd helped change hospital policies, lobbied for patient protection laws, given voices to those who'd been abandoned in their darkest hours. Tommy had returned to work full-time, his experience transforming him into a different kind of accountant, one who specialized in helping families manage medical expenses and insurance disputes. His colleagues called him the financial first responder. Mom, Tommy said as we pulled into his driveway, a modest house with a garden Elena tended with loving care, I have something to ask you. He turned in his seat, Elena smiling beside him. In his hand was a small velvet box. I know it's unconventional, but Elena and I want you to have this. He opened the box to reveal my grandmother's silver locket, the one I'd clutched during those terrible first days. You gave it to me when I was in the hospital, said it was for protection. I want to give it back now, as a promise. A promise. Elena spoke softly. That we'll never let each other face anything alone. That family means showing up, no matter what. I took the locket, feeling its familiar weight. Your grandmother would have loved knowing it brought our family back together. That evening, we had dinner at Tommy's house, Elena's homemade enchiladas, my mother's recipe for cornbread, stories and laughter filling the rooms that had once been so empty and cold. As I watched Tommy and Elena together, their love built on mutual respect and genuine care, I felt a profound sense of completion. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Stevens, new patient in ICU, family abandoned her after diagnosis. Can the foundation help? I showed Tommy the message. Without hesitation, he said, let's go. As we drove toward Mayo Clinic, Elena insisting on coming too, I realized this was what healing looked like. Not just Tommy's recovery from cancer, but our recovery from the wounds Amber had inflicted on our family. We'd taken our pain and transformed it into purpose, our tragedy into triumph. The hospital's automatic doors slid open, and we walked in together, 3 people united by love, ready to fight for someone else's family the way we'd had to fight for our own. Some stories end with justice served. The best ones end with love multiplied.